Hello everyone, my name is Kumar and welcome back to my channel Kumar Programming. Today from the Angular interview question answer series, we are going to cover about testing. In this video, we are going to see how we have to do the unit testing, integration testing and E2E testing and how we can write our unit test cases. Whenever you go for an interview, your interview is not going to be completed without a question from the testing. And believe me, if you have not answered a very simple question from testing, it's going to be a very negative impact to the interviewer. So now let's see what type of questions that can come from the testing. So here the basic things, first of all, interviewer may ask like why we required unit test case. What is the use of unit test case? Right? And then what is the difference between unit testing, integration testing and E2E testing? And then after that he can ask, can you explain about basic component like described it aspect of testing and how many type of testing we perform and how we do it? What is Karma, Jasmine? What is 3A pattern, arrange, act and assert? How do you mock a service to inject in a unit test? What is the use of before each and after each? How to test the component and services? And what is code coverage? And how to generate the code coverage report? What is spy on, fake async, query selector to have been called method? And what is protractor and Cypress? And how we perform E2E testing. So these kind of questions can interviewer ask. These are all are very simple questions and I'll explain everything once I'll do our practical demonstration. After completing this video, I'm pretty much confident that you will be able to learn about testing and you will be very confident to write unit test cases. So be there till the end of this video, and if you have not subscribed my channel, please subscribe it and don't forget to press the bell icon so you will get the notification of all of my upcoming videos. Now let's go with a couple of theory questions and then after that we will see all these things in a practical demonstration. Okay, so now let's see the very first question which comes from the interviewer. Why we required unit test case and what is the importance of it? So basically unit test case in Angular or any other programming language or any framework is a very crucial part in order to maintain the code quality, preventing defect and ensuring the application behave as expected in a constantly changing code base. And it is an essential part of overall testing strategy for building robust and reliable software. Whenever you are doing the changes in your application and you don't know what all the impact is going to be happen in our entire application, in that case our unit test case is required. Now let's see what all the important aspects are there from the unit testing. So first of all, it's detecting bug early. Okay, so if you have any defect, you did some changes and you have some defect, so you can identify your defects early rather than getting it from the production. And once you are writing your unit test case, your code quality is improved and it's maintainable. Okay, anyone can get to know what type of all the cases are involved into the code, and it is very useful when you are doing your refactoring the code or doing any changes and you have done some changes in your application and you don't know what all the impact is going to be there in your application. So in that case your unit test case is very helpful and you can easily identify what all the impact is going to be happen in your project. And whenever you do the regression testing is basically whenever you do some changes in our existing application and you want to check if your existing application is working as expected after implementation of the new changes, then that testing is known as a regression testing. Next is continuous integration and continuous deployment. Automated unit tests are a fundamental part of continuous integration and deployment pipeline. So whatever pipeline, either Jenkins pipeline or Bitbucket pipeline or GitLab pipeline, whatever pipeline we are using, we are injecting our test cases into the pipeline and testing it before doing any deployment to our production environment. So that ensures we are deploying a defect-free application to the production environment. Okay. Now next is isolation of components. Whenever we are writing the test cases, we can easily isolate the components because test cases are written individually for each and every components. Now the next thing is whenever you do the changes, you can deploy your code confidently in your production environment because all the testing related stuff is going to be covered in your test cases. Last but not the least, if you have implemented unit test cases, you can make a better software design. Okay, now let's go to the second question. Now the second question interviewer may ask that what is difference between unit integration and E2E testing. Okay, so it's very simple. Unit testing, whenever we perform testing on a single unit, single class, okay, if all the functionality from that class is working as expected or not, that is known as a unit testing. Okay, and we will see once I'll do our practical demonstration. Now the second type of testing that we have is integration testing. Integration testing, whenever we perform our testing on a multiple associated unit, right? Might be we are having a component, we are having templates, services, modules. Okay, so more than one classes when we are doing the testing is known as a integration testing. We are doing the testing some modules, okay, and some of the components which are associated with the other services. Sometimes people say as a functional testing as well. Now next is E2E testing. Basically, we perform end-to-end testing to ensure that all the functionality is working as expected from an application from start to end. And mainly this is a part of automation testing, and we can achieve this by Protractor or Cypress that we will see at the end of this video. Now let's flip to the Visual Studio and get our hands dirty to write our unit test cases. Here I have created a brand new Angular application as a ng unit testing. In this application, I'll try to cover most of the test cases scenario that are required for our applications. I'll try to create some pipes and services, and then I'll create couple of components and then associate those services and pipe to that component, and I'll write the test cases for each and every scenario. So in that way you will be able to understand how to write the unit test cases and how we have to execute them. Okay, so now let's start. First I'm just going to create a here one pipe. So in our src folder, src app, here I'm just going to create a pipe, and inside that pipe I'm going to create a pipe here. So ng generate pipe, and I'll give the pipe name as a reverse. Okay, so if you see here my reverse pipe is generated. Now let's write some code over here in order to reverse our input. So here I'm just going to pass input as a value, and that value would be type of string, and here we are going to return value as a string. Okay, now let's some logic in order to reverse the string. So here we will check if we are getting any value inside our value input or not. Okay, so if we are not having any value inside our value could be either undefined, or it could be blank, or it could be null. Okay, so all those condition is going to be checked inside this. Okay, now I have seen most of the I mean like programmer, they are writing here value equal to undefined. They are checking individually for each and every, for undefined, for null. That is not required. Actually you can just pass it as a value here. Okay, and that is going to be checked. If the value is blank, if value is undefined, value is null, everything is going to be checked inside this. Okay, so here if there is no value, our value is equal to blank, then we have to return as a blank. Okay, else if we have the value, then we have to return as, I'm just going to split this value dot split. There is a function for split, and inside this split I'm going to split these things, the entire string with a space. And once it's getting split, we are going to get an array, and then we are going to reverse that array. So here I'm reversing that array, and then after that I will join all the string with the blank space. Okay, now we have a method as a join, and joining all those values in the array with the blank. So this is going to return our reverse string. Okay, now we have to write the test cases for this pipe. Okay, so now if you see here, there are two files are generated. Okay, one is the reverse.pipe.ts and one is reverse.pipe.spec.ts. So this spec.ts file is basically used to write the test cases, and if you see, this spec file is written in Jasmine. So Jasmine is a programming language that is being used to write the test cases. Okay, in order to write the test cases, you really don't have to learn much more about the Jasmine. You have to just remember some of the terms, and then after that you will be able to write the test cases very easily in Jasmine. Okay, and Karma is a test runner that is being used to run all those test cases in our HTTP server. Okay, now you got to know Jasmine is a programming language that is being used to write the test cases, and Karma is a test runner that is being used to run all those test cases in our HTTP server. And if you see here, both Jasmine and Karma is already being installed by our CLI tool once I have created my application. Okay, now let's go back to our spec file and here try to understand how we have to write our test cases. Okay, so before writing the test cases, first try to understand what is the structure we have for our test cases. Okay, so in order to understand the structure, let me create here a box. You can just think this is a big building. Okay, this red box is a big building, and in this big building we have several apartment. Okay, one apartment, two apartment, three apartment, and we have four apartment. Okay, so these apartments are nothing. Apartments are our components, our services, our pipes, and our modules. Okay, so this big box is our application, and in this big box we have a small apartment that is our component and services. And in this each and every component we have several small rooms. Okay, like might be this apartment are having 3 bedroom and 1 kitchen. Okay, might be this apartment is having 2 bedroom and 1 kitchen. Okay, similarly here also it would be having some bedroom and kitchens. So these bedrooms and kitchen are nothing. These are the test cases. Okay. So here we have a big application. Inside we have several test suite. Okay. This is known as a test suite. These apartments are I am considering here as a test suite, and these test suite are having a small test cases. Okay. So very simple. We have a big application. Inside a big application we have a several test suites, and each and every test suites are having their own test cases. Okay. And now if you understand the structure, then it would be very easy for you to understand and writing the test cases. Now let's go back to our spec file. So here in our spec file, let me comment this code for the time being, and here I'm going to create a test suite. Okay, so test suite is being created by the method as a describe, and inside this describe method you have to give the name of the suites. Okay, so the name of the suite here I'm going to give as a reverse pipe testing. Okay, and the second parameter that we have to pass as a fat arrow function. Okay, that's it. So our suite has been created. Okay, now in this suite we have to create our multiple test cases. Okay, test cases are created inside the suites by the method as it. Okay, and inside it we have to give the test case name. Okay, what exactly we are going to test. Okay, so here I'm just going to give as a create an instance. Okay, and the second parameter that we have to pass is fat arrow function. Okay, now our test case is created. Okay, similarly we can create multiple test cases. Okay, and the second test case we need to check the functionality, if the component functionality is working or not. Okay, so see, in the reverse pipe the functionality is to transform and reverse the string. Okay, so in this test case we can give name as a should reverse the string. Okay, and here if we have considered the positive case, then we have to consider the negative case as well. Okay, so negative case would be if suppose that we are getting a blank value or null value or undefined value in our input, so it should handle that case as well. Okay, so we can just mention as a should handle blank, null and undefined value. Okay, so now here we have 3 test cases. Okay, inside our describe. Now inside the each test cases we have a specific format. In that format we have to write our each and every test cases. Okay, and that format is 3A pattern. Okay, 3A pattern is basically first A is for arrange, second A is for act, and third A is for assertion. Okay, now let me first arrange, second one is act, and third one is assert. Okay, now in the arrange basically we are arranging the mock data. Okay, we are not going to work with the actual data, so basically we have to provide the mock data, mock information. Okay, on the basis of that we are going to write the test cases. Okay, so in the arrange section we are not required any mock data because we are just going to check if the instance is being created for this our reverse pipe or not. Okay, so in the action we are going to create the instance. Okay, so in the action what we are doing, we are creating the instance of the reverse pipe, and in assertion we are going to call a expect method. Okay, so in expect method, basically what we are expecting, this pipe needs to be truthy. Okay, and this to be truthy, that is very common function that we are going to use in our throughout the test cases. To be truthy means this particular instance is initialized. Okay, this is not null, this is not undefined. Okay, so this test case is going to be executed. Now similarly we are going to do write the second test case here, should reverse the string. Okay, because this is the main functionality of this component. So here we are going to arrange a data. Okay, so here I'm just taking a variable as a const data, and let me take a data as a hello. Okay, so we have arranged the data. On this data we are going to perform the execution of this test case. Okay, second thing, that we have created the instance, and then after creating the instance we have to call the transform method. Okay, so here I'm just going to create another variable const result, that would be equal to pipe dot transform. Okay, because pipe dot transform method we have, and we will pass this data inside this. Okay, now what we are expecting in this result would be, so here expect this result, here we are going to check to be, and that will be just opposite of hello. Okay, o double l e h. So this is the expected output from this test case. If this is working, then we can say our transform functionality is working as expected. Okay, now similarly we will write our third test case as well. Here I'm just going to arrange a data. So here we have to check our negative things, if our data is blank or our data is null or undefined. Okay, null or undefined. Now in the act section we are creating the object for this pipe, and then we are doing the transform, and what we are expecting here, we are expecting here to be a blank value. Okay, if you remember that we have already written it, if the value is null or undefined or blank, then we are returning the blank value. Okay, so if you see in the test cases we are calling this transform method, and if this our data is null, then we are returning a to be a blank value. So I'm just going to delete this. So now our test case is ready for this particular component, reverse pipe component, and we have written these test cases for individual component. Okay, we are not having any dependency. Now let's run this test case and see if it's working or not as expected. Control J. In order to run the test case, we have a command ng test. Now our code is building actually. Now our Karma is running. So I told you the Karma is a runner for our test cases. So if you see here, let me expand it. App component, this is already being written inside our application, so we are not going to consider for now. But if you see reverse pipe testing, okay, this is our test suite. Okay, and inside this test suite we have created a should reverse the string, that is also getting passed, and create an instance, that is also being passed, and should handle blank and null and undefined value, that is also being passed. So these all are three test cases that we have written inside this test suite, and everything is being passed. Okay, now let's just test it if we do provide some wrong information. Okay, so suppose that here I am just providing input as a hello 1. So we are expecting here hello, right? But it should be hello 1. So if you see here, my one test case is being failed. Now if you go to the Karma, here also if you see, one test case is being failed. If you see the list, should reverse the string, that test case is being failed here. Okay, here one more thing that we have to take care is, let's go back to our Visual Studio. Now let's correct it. Okay, hello. So if you see here we are having these lines common in all our test cases. Okay, so somehow if we can remove this line and we can declare it at the beginning of the suite. Okay, here we have a method as a before each. Okay, so before each, same we have to pass a fat arrow function inside this. Okay, and we can cut this line from here and we can paste it here. Okay, now we can remove this line from here as well, and we can remove this line from here as well. Okay, now let me declare a variable here. Let pipe would be a type of reverse pipe. Okay, we'll remove the const from here. Now this pipe is available in each and every test cases. Okay, And if you see here we are creating the instance of reverse pipe. Okay, so basically in Angular we have a dependency injection. Okay, so rather than creating the instance of services, we can inject it. Okay, so here in Angular there is a utility provided as a test bed. Okay, and test bed is from Angular core testing. Okay, so here we have test bed, and this test bed is basically provide a module where you can inject all your dependency. Okay, either it's service dependency or it could be a component dependency. Whatever dependency you have, you can inject inside our test bed. Okay, so test bed dot configure testing module. Okay, and inside this testing module we can inject. Okay, so here we know providers, we know how to inject in Angular provider, and we are going to inject here reverse pipe. Okay, and here rather than creating the instance, we can pipe equal to, we will replace this line with testbed dot inject. Okay, and we are going to, what we are going to inject as a reverse pipe. That's all. So what exactly is going to be happen? This before each function is going to call for each and every test cases, and it's going to inject our reverse pipe for each and every test cases. Okay, and this test bed, it's creating a module, configuring a module where we can add our all the dependency. Okay, so that's all from this reverse pipe test cases. Let's see if it's working as expected or not. Yep, if you see here 6 success, and let's go back to the browser, and if you see here, let me expand it. So if you see here, this reverse pipe testing is working as expected and all the test cases are being passed. Now similarly, I'll create a service, and from that service I'm going to fetch the data from the API, and then I'll bind those data to our component. Okay, so now let's create a service here. Go to our terminal here and ng generate, we can directly create here as services, and inside this I'm just going to create a author service because we are going to load the author data. Okay, so now it's going to generate a service inside our services folder. Sorry, we have to write ng generate service. Okay, s is the short form for the services. Now it will generate a service inside our services folder. So if you see here, now my service has been created. If you see here, I have a author service, and under that I have a author service spec.ts. Okay, now let me write the code in order to fetch the author data from our author service from author API. So already I have written a API in Node from where I'm fetching the author data. So let me show you that API as well. So here I have a library API. Let me run this nodemon src server.ts. Okay, I'll make a separate video how to create the API in Node. As of now, already I have created this API, and I'll provide the code reference in our description from the GitHub, so you can take the reference from there. For the time being, I'm just executing this API, therefore I can fetch the data from this API. Okay, so if you see, API is running on 4001 port. So now let's see, localhost 4001. Okay, author. So if you see here, we are getting the author data from our backend service. Now we are going to use this URL in our application. So now here in our author service, I'll create a variable over here as a API URL that would be equal to my API URL here. And now in the constructor, I'm going to inject our HTTP client. So private HTTP, that would be type of HTTP client. Okay. Now let's import this HTTP client. From import, we have a HTTP client. From, we have @Angular and common HTTP, something like that. Angular common HTTP. Yep. Now we are going to create a method over here to fetch the data from our API. Okay. So now here I'll make a method as a get author. I'll make it as a get author because we are going to get the list. So get authors, and it's going to return an observable of an array. Okay, so here I'll return an observable because each and every services are returning an observable or promise. Okay, so here I'm going to return an observable that would be type of any array, and we have to import our observable as well. So here I'll give as a quick fix import from rxjs. Okay, now here we have to return. Okay, so what we have to return, this dot http dot get, and it's going to return the value as the type would be any array, and then we are passing the URL. Okay, so this dot API URL. Okay, so now this is going to return an observable, and we have to handle the error also, right? So here I'm just creating a pipe dot pipe, and inside this pipe I'm going to call the RxJS catch error, and this catch error is going to handle the error received in the API. Okay, so this dot handle error. Now let's import this catch error as well. Okay, and now let's create this dot handle error. So we will create a private method over here, handle error, which is going to have the error inside that type of HTTP error response, and which is going to return an observable. Okay, type of any, and here we are going to return throw error. Okay, so whatever the error that we are getting, we are going to handle it gracefully over here. Okay, so we'll pass a fat arrow function inside this, and here we will mention as a error occurred. Okay, error occurred, and we would be getting the error also. So here we have a dollar sign and curly bracket, and then we have to pass the error. Okay, we have to import this throw error as well from RxJS. Okay, now we are expecting that this service is going to return our author data and handle the error, and we will write the test cases for this. So go to the author spec file. If you see here, it's already given a described suit, and here it's given as an author service, and before each already is being configured here, testbed.configure testing module, and we are using the author service, right? So this service is already getting injected over here, and it's created already one test case here as a should be created. Okay, and it's checking if this service is initialized or not to be truly. Okay, now let's see our functionality. So here, if you remember that we are using a HTTP client. Okay, so we have to import that module in our testing as well. Okay, so here inside our imports, and here we will put our HTTP client testing module. In our services we have HTTP client, and here similarly we have HTTP client testing module. So now let's import this HTTP client testing module. Import HTTP client testing module from same. Also here we have Angular common, and we have HTTP testing. Okay, so we have added our dependency for our HTTP client here. Here we have to mark our HTTP request as well. So in order to mark our HTTP request, here we will create a variable as a HTTP mark. So let HTTP mark, and that would be a type of HTTP testing controller. Okay, testing controller, and this HTTP testing controller is part of HTTP common testing as well. Okay, now here we are going to this HTTP mark inject in our test bed. So this HTTP mark equal to testbed.inject, and we are going to inject this HTTP test controller here. This HTTP mark is going to mark our request. So in testing, we have to mark everything. We have to mark our data, we have to mark our services, we have to mark our components, everything we have to mark. We should not work on actual data, right? Now let's create a test case for its functionality, and the functionality is author service get author function return the author list. Okay, so now let's write a test case here. I'm just going to copy paste here. Get authors should return author list. Okay, now I'll remove this. So first of all, what we have to do, we have to arrange the data. So in order to arrange, so what we need the URL. Okay, so already we are using this URL. Let me use this same URL over here as well. So I'm going to copy it, I'll paste it over here. Okay, const API URL. Okay, and the second thing, we have to mock the data. What kind of data service is going to return? Okay, so here I'll write the const expected data. Okay, that would be type of any as of now, and equal to, let's see what type of data that we are getting from our service. So this is the data that we are getting. So I'm just going to take only one from here, and I'll paste it. However, this data is completely a mock data, so we are not required to actually give the actual value, name, email, and let me remove the other fields from here. Now what we can do, we can copy the same thing. Okay, and here we will put some other ID. So this data is completely a mock data. Okay, here we could put anything, but as per our understanding, we have to provide some valid input over here. Okay, so far we have arranged our data. Now we need to take the action. Okay, so we have to call our service method, service dot get authors, right, and dot subscribe, because it's going to return an observable. Okay, and inside this our subscribe data tends to, here what we are expecting, expect this data needs to be equal to the expected data. Okay, data to equal to the expected data. Okay, here one more thing, that we have to mock our request as well. So I'll create a const request, and here http mock dot expect one. Okay, expect one is basically is taking the URL. From that URL you are getting the fetching the data. Okay, so here expect one, and what it is expecting, it is expecting this URL. Okay, now we have created our request here. So here we have arranged the data, we have taken the action. Now we have to perform the assert. Okay, so in the assert, what we are expecting, expect, first of all we should expect this request should be get request. Okay, so here request dot request dot method should be get. Okay, to equal get, and now we have to fetch the data from this request. Okay, so in order to fetch the data from the request, we are using the flush. Okay, so request dot flush, and what kind of data that we are going to flush, that we are going to flush this expected data. Okay, so see, here we have arranged the data, we have taken our API URL, and then we are providing some expected data, and here we have mocked our URL. Okay, now we have called our services get author method, where we are expecting this data needs to be equal to our expected data. Okay, and from this request we are flushing this expected data only. Okay, so eventually once we will flush this data from here, this service is going to return this data only, and eventually we are going to check if return data is going to be equal to our expected data. Okay, and this is a asynchronous call, so here we have to use async, and if we are using async, then we have to use await. Okay, and similarly I'll write the test cases for our negative cases, so I'll just copy paste here, and here get author should handle error while fetching data. Okay, while fetching data. Now here we should be having the same URL, but we are not here expecting any data, we should be expecting some error message. Okay, so I'll just put a const error message over here, I'll put some message as error occurred. Okay, now third thing, that we have to mock our HTTP request. So here I'm mocking our HTTP request, and here we are not going to, in case of data, so we are not going to use this data, I'll remove this, and here we are going to fail that. Okay, once we return the data explicitly, we are going to make it fail. Okay, so here I'll write a fail, there's a fail method and we can fail it. Okay, and I'll put some random message over here, expected an error. Okay, and what I have to do in case of error, I hope that you are knowing that we have in subscribe we have a 3 method. First one is for data, second one is for error, and third one is for complete. Okay, so here the second one is for error. If we received error, so here in the fat arrow function we are going to expect this error message contain this our error message. Okay, so expect this error to contain. Okay, in order to check anything is contained or not, we are using to contain. So here to contain, what we are expecting to contain, this error message. Okay, now we took the action also. Now it's time to assertion. Okay, so in assertion, expect this, first of all this should be the get request, that's fine. Okay, and now in place of request dot flush we are using request dot error. Okay, in place of request dot flush we are using request dot error, and we have to provide an error event inside this. So new error event, and what we are going to pass, the same error message, this error occurred. Okay, so are you getting the point? Here we are forcefully we are saying that this request needs to return this message error occurred, and same thing here inside our subscribe method we are checking if this error event is having the same error message. Okay, now let's control A, control KF. So it's going to be formatted. Now let's run our test cases. Ng test. Let's see if all the test cases are working as expected or not. As of now, it's building. Now our Karma is running. Let's see. So now here we are seeing 3 cases are getting failed. Let's check the first one. So expected OLLEH to be OLLEH1. So we remember that we changed one of the pipe here. So it should be hello. Okay. So it's corrected now. Now let's go back to our author service. In our author service, still our 2 test cases are getting failed. Expected one matching request for criteria this, but found none. Okay. So here basically this request needs to be part of our assertion. Okay, because here we are expecting this request needs to be this mock request expect one this URL. Okay, so this should be part of our assertion, and similarly this one also needs to be part of our. So I'll move it down. Yep. So if you see all the 9 test cases are success. Now let's go back to our browser. Yep. Let me expand it. So if you see here from the author service, all the 3 test cases are running as expected. Now here one more thing that I'll tell you, we need to generate the report also. Okay, so now let me show you how to generate the report. I'll running the command once again. Here in our command ng test, we have to return code coverage. Okay, so this code coverage is going to tell you how much code is covered by your test cases. Okay, so now let's run it. So now if you see here, there is a folder will be generated for coverage. So here our Karma test runner is running, and now here if you see all the 9 test cases are succeeded, and here we are seeing the report. Okay, so here we have statement, branch, function and lines. So if you see here, each and everything is being covered 100%. Now I'll show you if I just remove this test case. Okay, the negative test case. So what will happen? See, our function is as of now 66% only. We have not covered our negative cases. So we have to cover our positive as well as negative cases on the basis of the condition which we have given over here. Okay. So here we have fetched the data and we have handled the error. So similarly, we have write the test cases to handle the error as well. Okay. In most of the company, client is asking for the report around more than 80-85%, but some of the client are required for 95% as well. So always we can check how much code has been covered through our test cases. So this is the one way that we can do. Now let me uncomment this line. So now you can see my code is 100% covered with the test cases. Okay. Now further I'm going to create author component. In that author component, I'll load the data, this author list, and then after that I'll create a login form and I'll write the test cases for that as well. Okay. Friends, this video is going to be long, so I'm going to make another part of this and we will cover rest of the things in that part. And if you have not subscribed my channel, please subscribe it and don't forget to press the bell icon so you will get the notification of all of my upcoming videos. Thanks for today. Have a good day.